Hey everyone, in the earlier video we talked about the architecture and how the application execution happens during the startup of the application. In this video we will quickly look at the behavior when the request comes into the application. Basically, after the application startup process is completed, what will happen if someone from the client side hit the API endpoints like we have over here. We have the auth register API endpoint, we have the auth login API endpoint, and we have the /me API endpoint. So we are gonna see quickly what will happen when someone hits one of these API endpoint. We are gonna go over all of these API endpoint quickly one by one. All right. So we have over here, the first one is the auth register API endpoint. What I'm gonna do over here is quickly set the breakpoint. So it means when this API endpoints is triggered from the client side, either from the postman or from the front end side, then what is gonna happen inside our application, which application particular actually executes. All right, we will put the breakpoint over here first. Let me put the breakpoint here. Actually, I'm running this application currently in the debug mode. If I quickly open this debug panel, and here you see I have clicked on mute breakpoint. That's why this is not showing the red color. This is showing the white color. Let me remove that one. Now the breakpoint appears. And then when this breakpoint is reached, it is going to actually search the user if it is available in the database. If the user is available in the database, it is directly gonna return here email already taken. Otherwise, what will happen? The new user is created and the user email is set, and finally the user password is also set. Now we are using here password encoder. The password encoder is coming from the security config here, already loaded into the execution startup. And then finally the user is saved into the database. And it is not completed yet. On line number 35, what this is doing is this is creating a token. This is very important. Now the execution goes into the JWT util here, and here it starts creating the token. Okay, so I will put a breakpoint over here when it executes this complete flow of the create token. And let me come back to the auth controller. Once the token is created, it is going to actually return the token as well as the email. Okay, so let's see this flow when the request comes into the application. Actually, I have installed here the extension called cold request. This is basically the plugin. You can come here into the IntelliJ, click on the settings and go to plugin and search for the cold request. You can basically install it and use it in our application. So let me click here on this particular icon coming from the cold request. This will actually open, let me hide this one. Yeah, this will basically open the postman like interface over here. So what we will do is we will send the post request. This is a post request, right? And then we will hit this API endpoint, and in the body we are going to pass the email, let's say some name at example.com, let's say, and some password, right? And then let me hit this URL from here. Let's see where the execution actually goes directly when I click here. But one very important thing I want to put breakpoint is, if I come back, and if you remember in our last example, the last video, what we discussed is, when we go into this JWT filter, there we see the two methods over here that we have overwritten. One is the should not filter, another is do filter internal. And if we go into the security config, what we have done here is, every time the execution actually happens when the request comes into the application, the JWT filter will run. Okay, and JWT filter has these two methods. So that's why I'm gonna actually put this breakpoint over here and one more breakpoint over here. Let's see which one executes. All right, so we will send the request from here. So when I send the request, Now, every time before anything happens in our application, either one of these should execute. Okay, so what is happening here is the application flow goes into the JWT filter and it says this first one should not filter, and this will always execute in any API request. So any of the API endpoints, whatever they are, if they are hit, then this will actually execute. All right, let's go ahead and see. Click here. You see there our execution is stopped in line number 27. We have the breakpoint over there and we have this request coming over there. That is perfectly accepted, and we have this particular pattern followed, auth/registered, right? And this is also matched. So what it says is, if the request starts with this particular pattern, then it will not go into this. It will not go into this do filter internal. Let me click again. Let me continue actually this debug execution. It is still in line number 27. Let me click here again. Now you see over here, it is coming back into the controller in line number 27 again. So now, after that particular check happened into the JWT filter, now only it is actually searching the user into the database. If I hit again here, now you see here, the particular user was not there in the database. That's why what happened is, it actually ran all of this, saved the user into the database, and finally it is creating the token. When token is created, it goes into the create token, which is inside the JWT util over here. And let me resume again. And now it seems everything is working fine, because it took a little bit of more time. That's why we got the time out here. Now we will actually turn off those breakpoint and continue our application in the normal flow. If I hit this API endpoint again, what will happen? You can guess, because the user is already saved and previously the execution went into this line number 35. That's why it's gonna actually return email already exists. Let's try again. You see over here, email already taken, coming from line number 28. So if I modify here a little bit, now let me hit again. You see over here, we are getting email and token that's coming from line number 36. Okay, so this is very, very important. Our execution directly not coming into the controller, but it was coming from the JWT filter first. Okay, so we verified this particular auth register one, and in the auth register one, when we went into the JWT util, let's come back quickly here. What is this doing? It is adding the custom claim, that is email, into the token. And what else is there in the token? We have the user ID in the token, we have the issued time in the token, we have the expiration time into the token, and finally it is signed and actually a token is created. Alright, let's come back here and let's now quickly validate this API endpoint, auth login. Now I'm gonna log in with the same credential again. The request is only changed. It is still post here, you see. And if I quickly turn on, let me quickly go again into the breakpoint. Let me turn on the breakpoint, and now execution will come here. That's why I'm gonna put the breakpoint over here. But this will actually, this login will actually create the token. You see over here, because when the user is logged in, it is creating the token again and sending. So again, it will come here and come into the JWT util create token one. If I come back here, this is very important. This pattern is still a login. That's why JWT filter will only execute this first one, should not filter. Let's go ahead and see the execution. Okay, let me send the request. As expected, it's hitting the line number 27 here, and after line number 27, it is going into line number 41 of the controller, the particular API request that we hit, auth login. And if I continue now, it is going to the create token, completely expected, and then finally the execution completed. Okay, let me run into the normal flow now. hit again, you see over here we are getting email and the token that's come from the auth controller over here. Okay, these two are not protected API endpoint, because if you come here and see into the let me open the panel. Actually in Mac you can hit command and 1 to open the panel. That's the shortcut. And if I come here into the JWT config, actually the security config, I want to quickly come, and here it is checking for this particular pattern. If the API endpoints are matching this pattern, which were matching previously, like auth register, auth login, at that time it will permit all. Otherwise it's gonna hit the authenticated route. Actually basically they have to be authenticated if it is not matching that. How is this happening? Now the JWT filter is doing that. So we will turn on the breakpoint again, and we have the breakpoint over here and over here. The expected is if the API endpoints are not protected, then do internal filter will execute, including the should not filter. It means first should not filter will execute and then do internal filter. Let's come back and let's hit that API endpoint that we have in the auth controller, which is me. So I'm gonna hit that API endpoint. Now you see over here, this is the GET request. And now in the GET request, we don't need the body, but we need the header over here, because this particular API endpoint you see over here, it is actually getting the user ID from the security context holder. So it means whatever we have discussed previously, let me come back to JWT filter over here. Whatever we have discussed previously, you see over here that we have this do internal filter will execute. We saw that, right? And now it will read the header. If there is the header that has this authorization header, and if it has this particular token that starts with bearer, then it's gonna actually parse the token. So where is this parse token logic? It is there in the JWT util. So if I come here in the JWT util, we have this parse token over here. Let's put the breakpoint over here as well. Okay, so it will basically parse the token, and it will check the validity of the token into the JWT filter over here. So if the token is valid, then it will hold that token into the security context holder. Then only our execution will come here into the this particular me route, and then it will return the user ID. Okay, let's put here the breakpoint as well, and let's actually run this particular application. Now very important thing is, because it will come here into the security actually JWT filter, and it will actually read this authorization header. We don't have the authorization header here currently. You see, we are not sending any authorization header from the header over here. Now let's see what will happen, because the header will not be there, and this execution should not continue, and our auth controller should not actually return the user ID because we don't have any. Okay, let's see that flow. Let me hit here. You see here, as expected, we told already, right? This will always execute, should not filter. Now let me continue. You see over here, now it is going into do internal filter, because this is the protected route. Okay, why protected route again? Because this is not matching those particular pattern. It is also there in the JWT filter as well. It is not matching this one. That's why what will this return? This will return false. Previously this was returning true, and it was not going into the second function. Now it goes into the second function, and now it is reading the header over here. So it is here. One important thing what you can do is, you can just copy this header, right click here and click on evaluate expression, and you can just search for the header over here as well. Okay, so currently no local variable. Let me hit here again. Now we will actually see this one particularly. Currently the timeout is there. We want to see what this header is actually. So, or what we can do is, we can just copy this, and let me hit this API endpoint again, resume. Now it is here. Now what we can do is we can just right click and click on evaluate expression. Now evaluate this one. You see over here this is null. So basically the header is null. We don't have header over here. That's why it is not going into this if log. And now our execution completed here because it is not able to actually return the security context holder. Basically it is not able to set the token into the security context holder. That's why it is not going into our controller to return that user ID over here. Okay, we are not seeing any execution happening on line number 52 over here. If you want to see that, let's continue. Currently our execution is into the JWT filter over here, line number 32, basic 34 actually. Let's resume and see there line number 34, and then it's completed. It's not coming back into our auth controller line number 52. Alright, then let's set the authorization header here. You can just click plus and just write authorization, and we need the token basically, right? We need the token. Where is the token? The token will come from either the register or the login. So we just want that token to be copied first. Let's turn off the breakpoint. Let me go to that route again, login route. Basically this one is auth login, and then this is the post request. We just want that token actually. Let's copy that token. It's a long token. Let me copy this one. Let's copy this one. Let's go back to the get request me, and let's come back to the header. And if you see here in our JWT filter, it is reading the authorization. We have the authorization. The value so it starts from bearer, space, and the token. Let's come here. Okay, let's set here, and then let me paste this token. Okay, we have the valid token now. I want to turn on the breakpoint again. Okay, I want to see the particular value of this particular expression. Alright, let's hit this line 27. Let's resume. Alright, now execution is happening in this particular line. I want to do evaluate expression and evaluate. There we go. You see over here we have the token, valid token over here. Is it valid or not? It's gonna be done by the parse token, but currently at least we have the token here. Alright, so now it will go inside the header as well, and then it will do the parse token. Where is the parse token? It's here. Let's see this particular breakpoint line number 41 will execute or not now. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the API endpoint again. Now I need to resume this first. I shouldn't click here. I hit that again. That's why it's coming in line number 27. Let's resume. You see over here, now it's here into the particular parse token method. If you want to see that again, let's do that again. Little bit confusing actually. Let me resume and complete this first. Okay, let's do it again. Click here. Alright, we have it in line number 34. Okay, sorry, it is in line number 27 currently. You see here it is in line number 34. Now it should go into the parse token. There we go. It is in the parse token. Now we have the token here. So if you want to see, you can just, what you can do, you know that you go and see that token in the evaluate expression if you want. There we go, we have the token, and this token will be verified actually. Is it valid token or not? And if it is valid, then it should come into the auth controller in the me API endpoint. Let's resume this. It's going back into line number 27 here. Okay, now it's coming here in the line number 52 here. You see over here it says it basically found the user ID. If you want to see, you can just basically log this particular expression into the evaluate expression if you want to see that. There we go, we have the user ID here. Now the user ID will be returned from here, this particular endpoint. Okay, let's turn off the breakpoint and we will see that particular user ID here. There we go. We got the user ID. This is how this protected API endpoints is running. It is going into the multiple phase. First one is it is checking into the JWT filter. First it is going into should not filter, and it is not matching this particular what we call it endpoint, and then it is returning false, and then it is coming back into the do filter internal, and here it is able to find the header. Now header is true, it goes into the if block, and there it parsed the token from the JWT util over here, it verified the token, come back here, and then the particular auth object is set into the security context holder, and then it come back into the auth controller, and then it returned the user ID from here. What if we temper the token? Let's temper the token to make it invalid. I'm gonna remove something and add something maybe just to make this token invalid, and then let me turn on the breakpoint quickly. Let's see where the execution will go, whether it will come into the auth controller or not. Okay, line 27. Oh, I'm hitting there, not there. I need to hit here actually. Line 34. Where is this going? Nowhere. Where? Because you see over here, we have this, we want to see this quickly actually. This is a little bit quicker. So let's do it again, probably. Okay, it comes into line number 27. Now we have this particular token here, and we want to see, I'm very interested to see what is the value here at this point. Whatever the value we set from the bearer, we have it here. Now it should go into this if block, and then will it go into the parse token or not, because we have the breakpoint over here, but we have the breakpoint at the end. Probably I should have it somewhere here as well, probably. Let's see which phase will execute. Okay, so currently it's coming here on line number 36. It is trying to verify, because here we have the token, right, header, that's why it went into the parse token. And now in line number 36 it is trying to verify the token. Let's resume. It is trying to build it. Now at this time it is not able to build the token because the token is tempered and it's invalid, and execution completed over there. It is not coming into this execution completed into this particular do filter internal, and it's not coming into our protected API endpoint. Even though we hit the request correctly, even though we have at least some value of the token, doesn't matter it is valid or not currently, even though we have those details, that time as well the request is not coming into the me API endpoint, which is protected, because the filter is happening here and the filter is failed basically. All right, that's all about how we have set up this particular API endpoints. So the intention is just to quickly demonstrate the public API. We can just call it public because this doesn't have to be filtered through a do filter internal. That's why basically we are permitting all of the API endpoints which have this auth pattern. So we saw those particular kinds of API, as well as we saw some API, one API basically that is filtered. Basically this is protected, we can say. Okay, this requires a valid JWT. Basically we can just see the breakpoint here and just trace whether it is able to find the valid token or not. Since we tempered the token, it is invalid and it is not able to find that. Okay, this is all about the existing API endpoints we have. The application is not perfect. We have a lot of issues in this application. We want to harden this application to make it production ready, and what real world issues and the scenarios we will face into such JWT based authentication. We will explore all of these in the future videos. Thank you so much.